Yo, this is Eric Metcalf, and you're listening to the 3-Point Conversion.
What up? It's your man, Mr. Controversy. Did you miss me? Yes, we back on Radio Row in Los Angeles for the Super Bowl and have a special guest. I have the one and only Mr. Eric Metcalf. How's it going, man?
It's going great, man. You going to be controversial with me?
No. So I'm explaining it to you.
Okay.
Controversy is, I don't see, everybody don't like to talk about, they always talk about the narrative. They don't go against the narrative. I go against the narrative when it comes to sports.
Okay, cool.
Okay? It's cool. Like saying something like with you know, you was a kick returner. They say he was pretty good. Kick returner, he's all right. Well, no, he was as a wide receiver because he was in the slot. You couldn't guard him. His height and everything. You know, I go against the grain. That's why they call me Mr. Controversy. I'm all right, not nothing. I ain't going to bring up. Yeah, Eric, we saw you at the hotel last night with that. No, that's not me. Not on that way.
I hear you.
But anyway, man.
Just checking.
Yeah, I got you, bro. But no, you don't believe I've been asked that like 8 times since I've been here.
Oh, makes sense.
But so you're the host of the Dog Check podcast, correct?
Yep. I'm Believe podcast.
Believe podcast,
network.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I get on there and talk all things Browns, whether it be good or bad. You know, I have to ruffle a few feathers.
You got to be controversial, right?
I got to, yeah. But what I can say about doing it and being able to talk Browns, that my perspective of what I see is different than the normal fan, right? You know, when I look at it and I talk about maybe I thought something should have happened, maybe I think things should be a little different. Mm-hmm. I view it from how it was when I played. And granted, right, the game's different.
Right.
But at the same time, when you go out there in between the white lines, football is football. Yeah. And so me knowing how it feels to catch a ball is different than the regular person at that level. You know? Right. So, yeah.
And see, and that's why, like, going back to the name, I'm that type where, you know, I'm not just going to go with what everybody says. You know, I don't go with the obvious. And I think everybody goes against the obvious. Like you said, you're going to talk about, no, this is how it should be, you know, based on your experience and just on what you see. Whereas most people, you know, they want to go with the obvious. And that's why they call it controversy, but I understand that. Now, let's talk about the obvious with the Cleveland Browns. Baker, and I'm not going to lie, Eric, and I'm going to let you chime in.
Don't lie.
I won't. I think everybody's getting on Baker. I understand it, but Baker played with this shoulder injury. And I believe the only thing that cost him, from my perspective, is the fact that he wanted to play through it.
Okay.
Look at
I'm going to be controversial.
But I'm saying, and you can tell me because you there. But before then, he was playing well. Last year, he played well. Go ahead.
Okay. We'll go to the injury first.
Right.
Because he was injured. It was his left shoulder. Mm-hmm. He throws with his right. Mm-hmm. But everyone in the NFL is injured.
True.
Right? So when you step in between those white lines, play football.
Right.
If you step out there, play. We don't want to hear no excuses about you being injured because you stepped on that field. Because as a quarterback, when Baker Mayfield throws the 50-yard Hail Mary to Donovan Peoples-Jones, everybody's excited. No one says anything. When he throws an interception to let's say Joe Hayden, now he's injured. And so I don't like that. If you're hurt, and this for any player. Yeah, right. I'm not just talking about him, but he's the subject of the conversation right now. If you're hurt and you can't play to the fullest of your ability, don't get out there.
Right.
Because then you look bad. And then you have excuses. Don't make excuses. Now, going to it. There's so many ways I look at this and how that Baker whole thing could have transpired as far as, you know, he's injured. Should he play? Should he not play? If I'm Baker Mayfield, I wouldn't have played.
I agree.
Because then, in his own selfish right, he could say, let's see if they can win without me. If they don't win, they got to pay me.
Exactly,
we went to the playoffs last year and won a playoff game.
Right, and I almost beat the Chiefs, really.
And almost beat the Chiefs. Yeah. But he played because he looked at that roster and looked and saw Case Keenum can win games with this football team, right?
Right.
So now I got to get out there because if Case Keenum goes out there and wins games, then they still don't have to pay me.
And you know what? I didn't think about from that perspective as far as Case Keenum behind him, and he's worried about that. I didn't.
I mean, you have to think about that. You have to think about that.
Yeah.
But I would have went the not play route,
Right.
and just trying to figure it out. Now, Baker Mayfield, he could be a good quarterback. You know, and we can win a lot of games with him. I don't think he's a franchise quarterback, but then how many of those are there in the NFL,
yeah.
right? There's guys who can go out there and make some winning plays. There are guys who can play smart football, but there aren't many franchise quarterbacks, right? Maybe 8 to 10, maybe. And so he can win games in Cleveland. Everything has to be right. And what I think is right for the Cleveland Browns offensively is turn around and hand the ball off to Nick Chubb.
Yeah. Right.
And that's what I think is right. And that makes everything better for Baker Mayfield.
And that was a recipe for last year. So why all of a sudden this year it just seemed like they kind of went away from that? Was it because Chubb? Because I think Chubb was hurt earlier, right?
He was hurt.
Yeah, he was hurt. And then Kareem was hurt.
But he was hurt, and he still finished third in the league in
Rushing.
and which is, but that's I think for me, it doesn't really matter which one of those guys is back there.
Yep.
Because they can all run the ball well, and that offensive line can block it well. Just run the ball and take the pressure off Baker Mayfield. I mean, when Nick was hurt, Kareem was hurt, Dearness Johnson comes in, he still rushes for 100 yards a game, right? So that means we can run the ball with whoever's back there.
Yes.
So do that, and then your quarterback doesn't have to win the game. Mm-hmm. You look at Seahawks, and when they were winning Super Bowls, why did they win the Super Bowl? They had good defense and could run the ball.
Right.
Teams can run the ball. It's a pathway to the Super Bowl if you have a good roster, which the Browns did.
Yeah. And that's why, because I honestly, believe it or not, after last year, my dark horse team, well, not even dark horse team, I just said I think the Browns, after last year, I think they could get to the Super Bowl. They were my surprise pick. I think they could get to the Super Bowl, but of course things didn't come out that way.
Man, let me tell you, when I saw the Browns roster, schedule based on last year, I was like, these dudes are going 13-4.
You're right.
Right? And then you look at the schedule and it flips, and all these teams that had losing records turn around and end up going to the playoffs.
Yeah.
We lose to the Raiders who went to the playoffs. The Chargers had an opportunity to go to the playoffs. Cincinnati is in the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And so it's weird because, people forget. You have the roster. You did whatever you did last year, but no season is the same.
No, it's not.
No season is the same. No roster is the same. Nothing is the same. So you still have to be able to go in between those white lines and play football.
And then to add insult to injury, you all let go of Odell.
I knew that was coming.
And this joke in the Super Bowl right now. Well, like when you see that, is that more on ownership? Does it fall on coaching? Or does it fall under Baker?
It really falls on everyone. I believe, but I think to be real about it, it just didn't fit for Odell. And he when he got here, he thought he was going to get all the opportunities that he wanted and go out there and make plays to show people that he was still the special player that he is. We weren't able to connect with him, Baker, and he didn't have any rapport, and it didn't work out. So I can understand his frustration because I tell people all the time, I've been on a Cleveland Brown team that was 11-5, went to the playoffs and won a playoff game, and in that, as soon as that season was over, I asked to be traded because I wasn't getting the ball, because I wasn't contributing like competitive people want to do, and OBJ is one of those people. So if you're in a situation where you're not getting the ball and you're losing, that makes it even worse. So I can understand him trying to get out of there. I can understand Baker's frustration with the video being put out there. I can understand with the organization being frustrated in that respect as well. But I can understand, which I don't understand, but I can't understand that it's not they must didn't want OBJ to have the ball.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about Devontae Adams, you talk about Cooper Kupp, you talk about DeAndre Hopkins, you talk about Tyreek Hill, they say, well, these guys everybody's being double teamed. Well, so are they. So if you want him to have the ball, you can figure out how to get him the ball. So in my mind, that's why I say it falls on everyone because OBJ was frustrated and the body language showed it. Baker wasn't getting him the ball. I don't think the plays were schemed for him to get the ball, and that's what happens. And now he's playing on Sundays, which is like a double-edged sword for the Cleveland Browns fans because you have OBJ on one side going to the Super Bowl and the Bengals on the other side.
Going, yeah,
right.
Man.
So, a team that we actually went into Cincinnati and beat 41-16.
Right. Wow.
Right.
So in your career, for all the young heads that don't know, so came in, you did punt return, kick return, but then you played running back. But also, I know you played wide receiver a little bit in Cleveland, but when you came to Atlanta, you played. That's when they had you at wide receiver. That transition was it hard to adjust, or was it easy, or were you the one to say, you know what, I think I can play wide receiver? Like, how did that come about?
I never in my life said I wanted to play wide receiver, ever. Because when I think about wide receiver, there's so many variables that have to go right in order for you to get the ball. Line has to protect. Quarterback has to make a good throw. I have to run a good route or get open, and then I have to catch it. Right, and so there's so many things that have to happen for it to go right. Whereas as a running back, they can just turn around and pitch it to you or hand it to you, and it's on. And I got it in my hands, and I can try to figure it out. So I never wanted to play wide receiver. I get to Atlanta. June Jones moves me to a slot, and like you said, I split out as a wide receiver in Cleveland, but generally when I was out there, it was against linebackers and safeties.
Came out of motion or something.
A couple times, some back defensive backs were back there, but not all the time, right? And so I get to Atlanta, and I'm in the slot, and we go through minicamp. Okay, that's cool. We're not really playing football. Just for me, is just trying to learn the plays in the system. We come back through training camp. We got pads on. We start throwing it through it, and I'm like, I don't think this is gonna work, man. No one knew. I was like frustrated. Like I never played receiver before. Give me the ball. Put me in the backfield. Let me run. We'll figure it out from there. And so I went through it and just preseason. I still didn't feel good about it. Preseason's over. Game starting. I was like, oh yeah. It's like it just clicked, and everything just started working. And Jeff George was throwing me the ball, and I was having fun, scoring lots of touchdowns, catching lots of balls. And then June still put me in the backfield and let me run the ball time.
Yeah, and because you think about these wide receivers like Tyreek Hill playing wide receiver. They use Tariq Cohen. It's funny, both names Tariq, but they've used him in the backfield like that. But you were the one that, to me, I can't think of no one else that really kind of started that trend where we could play him. He could play wide receiver. You had Dave Meckett, but he didn't necessarily play wide receiver. He would just run in motion like 100 miles per hour. And like, who's this little guy running the fast? But, that's how he played, But, yeah, I think you were the one to start that. Now, when you look at today's game, look at like a Sean Payton, you see how he uses
Alvin Kamara,
but the running back before that came from Chargers. I can't think of his name. The little number 43.
Oh, Darren Sproles.
Sproles. And even Reggie Bush. Was that like a dream job for you to play the running back position? But because they didn't necessarily play wide receiver, but they came out the backfield like you did in Cleveland.
You see, I think I'm a victim of my own talent in the wrong era, right? Because when I came out in 1989, they were playing smash mouth football, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Everything was running between the tackles. Nothing was spread offense. Everybody thought the run and shoot was just a passing fancy, right? No pun intended. Right. But that's what they thought. It's not going to be here long, and now everybody's doing some form of the run and shoot, which is better for guys like myself, for Alvin Kamara, for Darren Sproles, for Christian McCaffrey, because these are guys who are the same, or relatively same size as me, can do a lot of things, and now they don't have to be considered a third down back.
Right.
Now they can play every down because the field is so spread out, and if they run between tackles, it's still gaps if everybody blocks.
Right.
They can use swing passes, everything as just sweeps.
Mm-hmm.
It basically runs. They can run flat sweeps, and they can actually go out there and split out as receivers. So today's game would be perfect. I mean, I'd have $60 million. I'd be rich.
Yeah, with the money too. Yeah, because like you said, you will be an every down back. I mean, you'll be starting. I mean, because that's what they're doing. They're starting the Camaras and.
Yeah, and then making plays, and that's the key when you have somebody who can do a lot of things. To me, that's a football player.
Right.
To me, the guys who can play all over the place, that's a football player to be. And so I appreciate those guys that are doing this today. I appreciate that they're able to play all these positions, get paid lots of money, and because they always say the running back position is dead, and anybody can do it, right? Mm-hmm. But anybody can't do what they do. No, now you can't just find anybody to just play running back and carry the ball and play receiver, and those dudes could probably return kicks and punts, which they did early in their career if they wanted to.
And so I had Pac-Man on here, and Pac-Man, we were talking about just special teams and who's the best punt returner and all. We were just talking about that, and he talked about how it's been 8 punt return for touchdowns or kickoff for touchdowns, special team touchdowns he had that was taken back from flags. Do you know how many you've had in your career?
In the NFL?
Yes.
I never had one taken back.
Oh, wow.
Never.
Oh, great. That's
never.
Okay.
It seemed like it always happened in college, but never in high school, but never in the pros.
Oh, man.
What's funny about me returning punts, though, people don't realize that my first 2 years, I didn't even return punts. And then my third year, I returned 8 punts and got hurt. So I didn't really start returning punts till my 4th year, and I had that's when I had the record with at 10. But I don't think I know if I would have returned more punts, I would have had more touchdowns, unless they caught on to just kicking it out of bounds earlier.
Do you enjoy watching special teams? Well, they've kind of tried to take that away, and I understand the reasoning why, but as a former player, do you like that when you see that now kickoffs, get at the 25 and it'll be like 4 yards deep and players won't even return it?
I don't enjoy it, and I'll tell you why. Because just looking at it, there's only probably one person in the league right now who will bring it out 4 or 5 yards deep, and that's Kadero Patterson, right?
Yep.
And I appreciate them because what he's done, that means his coaches and their staff trust that they can do it. Mm-hmm. So he's a person that they're looking to score touchdowns with. Right. When I look at it now, it looks like these guys aren't trying to score a touchdown. They're just trying to secure the ball, whether it be on punt return or kickoff return, which is sad because me, Devin Hester, Josh Cribbs, Dante Hall, all kind of guys Brian Mitchell, guys who are one of your best football players. If you take special teams out, they never get to test the field.
Right.
So you're taking a weapon off your team, and that hurts your team because that's why you drafted this person to make plays like that.
Yeah. And before we go, I just got to ask you about this, and this is more of me personal. The game against Pittsburgh, I know you talk about it all the time, but just personal, with the 2 punt returns for the touchdowns, is that your most memorable, or both, or the last one you had with, that last touchdown, is that your most memorable, or what is your most memorable touchdown, a punt return or whatever?
See, it's not my most memorable. It's becoming because it's the fans of Cleveland. They love it so much. They love it. They remember it. It was a big day. But my most memorable touchdown is against the Raiders in 1993, I think, scoring a last-second touchdown. Because when you're a kid and you're out on the playground or out on the street, you dream of hitting a walk-off home run, hitting the last-second shot, and scoring touchdowns with no time on the clock. And I got to do that in the NFL, which rarely happens. I mean, a touchdown in overtime, that's not really a walk-off, right?
No, that's not
really a walk-off.
Yeah.
It's not really a walk-off, but I got to do it.
That's dope. So once again, man, we got Mr. Eric Metcalf. Appreciate you for coming on. Love to talk football all the time, man. Make sure y'all check out his podcast, the Dog Check Podcast, correct?
Dog Check, yeah.
Unbelievable Podcast.
Believe Podcast
Believe
Network.
Podcast. I'm sorry, Believe Podcast Network.
That's cool.
All right. We'll see y'all soon. You never know who else we're going to have, all right?